Hi everyone. Let's walk through making a pair of little red dress earrings made on a bead loom like this. I'll walk you through how to thread this. The supplies you will need for this will be some sort of bead loom. I bought this one from Michael's. It was only about $13. And of course you will need your choice of beads. I am using, these are like size 11 and 12-ish beads, little seed beads, and they're round. So I'm using 3 colors, but you can decide on what color combination you want. And before I forget to mention, optional is some wax. Beeswax is good, but I've been using a tea light even and to wax my thread from getting tangled. Some earring hooks and some beading thread. And if your loom came with the needle like mine did, but otherwise you will need a long beading needle. What also will be helpful occasionally is some pliers. You of course will need some scissors for cutting thread, and like I said, there's some beading thread and some glue will come in handy for your knots, for gluing the knots that you'll be tying. And I also use clear nail polish for coating my beads after, just to give them extra strength. I also used a little bit of masking tape as well. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we will need to do is thread the loom. And so if you refer to your pattern, our pattern is 13 wide. Okay, so that means that if there is 13 beads in a row, 13 beads per row, you're going to add 1. So now you need 14 strings across. So in other words, we are going to string on 14 strings across, back and forth. Okay, so how you start this, hopefully most of you know this already, but if you're brand new and you just purchased one, you just start at the end here on the knob. You tie your string on there. Okay. I have a few other free videos on my work account for doing bracelets and other ways of finishing. I will maybe link that in the description. Okay, so you tie it on there maybe twice, okay? And then you're just going to go through the center slot. Okay, go straight through to the other side. Then you're going to wrap around the peg. And now you're going to come back in the second slot. Come back to the second slot. Okay, then you go around the peg and into the next spot, into the next spot, around the peg. Okay, and you just do this for 14 strings. All right, just keep going back and forth into the spot beside, wrap around the peg, and keep going. Okay, now I've already done this. I've already got my 14 threads and I have it in red, and I will skip over to that video now and we will continue from there. Okay, so this is where we're headed. We are going to start with making this top pattern of the dress, and then later when we take this off the loom, we will add beads hanging down for a dangling effect. But now that we've got the threads on here, instead of having to thread the loom twice, I made this one at this end, and then I'm going to make the second one at this end, and then we will have 2 earrings on one loom. So you should refer to your pattern, and that is going to be how you know for each row what beads you'll be stringing on. So this here matches this right here, but we will start it on this side now. And if you notice, the strings here are quite close together, but when you switch over to this end, it's a lot wider over here. So when I start making this side, I'll be pulling it tighter, and it will end up being tighter like this. So how we begin is you're going to tie your string on the outer edge right here. Okay, so you're going to bring it through and just tie it on the edge. You want to leave yourself a little bit of tail in case we need it for something, or if we want to thread the tail back in through the beadwork at the end to strengthen it. So I'm going to leave just a little bit of a tail here. So you just tie a knot. Maybe I should put a piece of paper under here so you can see it better. Okay, and I'm going to tie my knot twice to keep it secure. Okay. Now it is going to move around, but once you get going, you can position it where you want to start. Okay, then what you do is, here's the thread coming out this side. You thread your needle, and you're going to go underneath. Bring the thread to the other side like that. So now the thread is going underneath, and you're over here with your needle. Okay? Now you can bring your pattern matching, and you're going to start here. So this corner right here is going to be right here. So when you load the beads on, the beads are going to come down here, and so you want to do this corner right here. So you're going to start loading your beads in this order: black, 2 red, black, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of either white, or I'm using clear in this case, and then you're going to go to black, 2 red, and black. And depending on what thread you're using, you can wax it to help it from tangling. I mean, usually we would use beeswax, but at the moment I just have a tea light, and I've just been using the tea light to wax my thread. Okay, so starting here, pick up 1 black, then you go 2 red, and I like to look at my beads and try to get them. If there's any really small ones, sometimes I will put them off to the side and try to get roughly the same size. Okay, so far I've got 1 black, 2 red, 1 black. Now I need 5 clear, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, now I'm going back to the black, 2 red, and a black. Okay, so you just load your first row of beads on, and then you drop them all the way down, and they're going to be going underneath here. Okay, now it's kind of hard to get started, especially since the threads are a lot wider than our beads are. So what you have to do is get one bead between each of these strings. And what you may end up having to do in the beginning, if you can't get them all to line up on their own, which it looks like I did, on this one, when I first started, I was having trouble. So I ended up threading a few and then pushing them along as I went. But basically, you fit them all in, one per space, okay? And then your goal is to push them up tall. You're going to take your needle and go through the top. Like the needle has to be on top of all these threads. Otherwise, they'll just fall off. And what happens to me quite a bit is, for some reason, I'll lose this last one and then I'll have to redo it again. But so there it is. The needle is going through the top. You're pulling your string through. Okay? And now I'm going to push these back down towards there again. Now you can see that this is quite a bit wider than this. So my goal is to, I don't want my earrings to be that big. So my goal is to pull these tighter, and I will go underneath again, bring my needle underneath and start my next row. And I think it's after I do my second row that I'm able to tighten the strings quite a bit. And if you want, with this loose one here, you can just wrap it over here to get it out of your way. Oops, I wrapped the wrong one. Wrap this short one. Okay, so I'm going to now take your pattern and follow the next row. So here we are. We're going to be taking 1 black, 3 red, 1 black, 3 white or clear, 1 black, and 3 red, and then 1 black to end it off. Okay, you drop them down underneath again, and you're going to try to get them all in between there again. 1 per space. Okay, I gotta move them over. There we go. There we go. Okay, got it. Okay, so right now, before I string it through, I'm going to try to pull it tighter. Well, actually, it's kind of hard to do both, so you might just have to wait until you get this through to the other side. You can try using your thumb to kind of hold it a little bit tighter if you want. Just make sure your needle is coming through the top. Okay, now you're going to pull it through, And this is where you're going to try and pull this tight. I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through this back line once I've got it as tight as I can. I'm going to go back through this row, just 2 beads. You can go 2 or 3, but my goal is to go through 2. Okay, I'm hanging on to this, keeping the tension tighter. Okay, there. So going back into those 2 helped me keep this tight so that it won't keep loosening on me. And then I'm going to now go back through these 2 so I can bring my thread back to where it was originally so that we can continue doing what we were doing. Okay? And again, pulling tight, okay? And then, guess what we're doing again? We're going underneath here. Strings underneath. You're now going to go to your 3rd row. So in this case, you have to remember to do this one as a white or blank one. And what's helpful as you go is you can cover up the rows that you've done as you go, so then you know what row you're on. So I'm doing a clear, a black, 3 red, 3 black, 3 red, a black, and a clear. Okay, so I've got them loaded on. Alright, so now the threads are very close together. They should pretty much be matching your bead size, so this should be starting to get a lot easier now to push these up into the correct positions. Kind of want them to pop up above. Keep an eye on this last one here. Quite often I somehow miss it. You have to be above this string when you put the needle in. If you're not, the bead is going to fall off and then you have to undo this row that you did. Alright, there we go. Row 3. We've done 1, 2, 3 rows, 1, 2, 3. So our next one is going to be this one. You just have to remember that in these little areas here, you still have to put beads. So where it's showing white, you have to put something there. Clear or white beads. So just continue all the way till you get down here. And if you ever do this where you miscalculate and you're 1 bead short, all you have to do, in this case, I only put on 4 red and I was supposed to put on 5. So I'm going to take off the 1 black. And you can do it without even having to take your needle off. You just pull the whatever beads that you don't want on. And then you put your needle backwards like this, and then the tail backwards as well, and then you can just pull it right off. You can pull it right off and then you can go back, add your extra red that you were missing, and then the black, and then you're good to go. Okay, so here we have the whole pattern done now, which matches the one on the other end for the second earring. If you ever don't start with enough string, it was starting to get a little bit tight for me. If you don't start with enough string and you run out or you feel uncomfortable with the length, all you have to do is wherever you want to stop, you just tie another knot on the edge and do it, and then continue the same way you did when you started. And then these tails later on, we can weave them a little bit back through before we snip them off. How to remove it off of here and the next steps into making them into a dangly dress, and then we'll make them into earrings. Okay, so how we get this off the loom now is, well, first of all, you can cut this, well, actually you can do it in any order, but you can cut this approximately half and then take the loops off the other end. I think I'm going to take the loops off the other end first. And one of your ends is going to be tied, so you'll probably have to cut that one, the one that we tied at the very beginning. And then I want the other side to come off. Go. So you can see that they've started to move, so all you got to do is just push them back again. Okay, so now I'm going to get my little tails out of the way that I'll be dealing with later. I'm going to cut this in approximately half. Okay, so now that we have the earring off the loom, we actually have two options. So you have to decide whether you want an earring that's just going to be like plain like this with nothing on the back. We will be adding some tassels down here. That'll be after we deal with the strings. But if you want to back this on a piece of felt or some sort of material, then there is a way that we can pull these loops from this end and they'll come down through, and then whatever's left you can tie off the bottom, and then actually you can just cut the strings short, put them behind here, and then they all will get glued in between the layers. But I'm going to make this earring without any backing. So maybe at the very end of the video, I will show you a demonstration of pulling these loops through. But for right now, I'm going to show you the method that we are going to use. Okay, so just leave these black ones. We will be using them later. Just leave them off to the side. Now, what we need to do is cut these loops at the end here. Cut all these loops, okay? So now they're single strands. And then all you're gonna do now is work from the corner. You take two strings and you tie those two strings together. Then you take the next two strings and then you tie those two together. I actually am tying them twice. Okay, and then you do the same thing up at the top. You'll be taking the first two, the next two, the next two, and tie them. And what works good for me usually is to get a piece of tape and tape down my thing like this, and get some of these strings out of the way with the tape, and then I'll start here. Now, if you have trouble tying such short little strings like this, then I would recommend only making one earring on the loom at a time, because then when you cut your strings, they'll be much longer. I was trying to maximize my thread on the loom by doing 2 at a time. So there, I've tied that one. Okay, and then now you can even take another piece of tape and start using that to keep these off to the side, so you don't lose track of which ones you have tied. And I'm just going to keep doing this now and tie all of these together. Like I said, it can be a little bit challenging with them being shorter, but then they're also not getting in your way too much when they're shorter too. The longer ones tend to like get everywhere. Okay, so I've done that one. Now I can take this one a little bit over out of the way and keep going. So I will come back on when I've tied all of these ones and all of these ones up at the top. Okay, so I've got these all tied now on the top and the bottom. And I don't know if you can see that they're double tied. All right, what I'm going to do now is just tape these top strings out of the way. We will eventually be either putting some glue on these knots, some sort of glue that'll dry clear, or you can use clear nail polish, which is often what I do at the end to secure all my beads together. But I don't want to put any glue on yet, because I still have to make this on the end for the earring, and I might need to go through some of these beads, and if I put glue on, it might be tough to sew. So for the time being, I'm just going to tape these ends backwards here, get them out of the way. And I'm probably going to just trim some of this tape away so that's not sticking out here. Start working on my 2 little black tails here. And now I want to thread these tails back in through. And what this will help do is secure everything down as well at the same time as getting rid of the tail. Now I went through 3. I'm going to go back through 3. If you go through the whole line, it doesn't really make it very tight, but I am going to do that just to add some strength later. But right now I wanted to do that. Now I'm going to go all the way through to the end. And I want to try and tighten up this bottom row again now. So I'm going to go through it again. Make sure these beads do not fall off, even though we've tied the knots. But this will definitely help hold the beads now from falling off the edge. Okay, now I'm just going to go. You just have to do this in such a way so that you don't have any thread showing. So you have to weave your way back and forth in whatever manner is going to hide your threads. So I think on this one I'm going to go through again. And I don't think I've gone through this one yet all the way through. And this is just going to make my work stronger. Alright, so I'm going to keep doing this either until I feel like stopping or until the thread is too short. And at some point I'm going to switch over to the thread that is right here and do the same thing. I'm going to, weave in through here. So I was able to actually weave the thread up to the other black thread so that I could tie those two together. And now I'm just going to work on this one to reinforce through. So I'll do that for a few rows. Now show you how to add just a little chain on here for the earring hook to go on. Okay, so you should have this drawing, and it's just giving you a quick reference for how to put on the earring hook. And so basically you may already have your thread coming out this side from when you started this whole process. If it's still there and it's long enough, you can continue using that piece of thread. If it isn't, then you can just start here on the corner, thread through here, then you're going to add 6 beads of whatever color you want. I used clear, you could use red or black to match the dress. And this is just in the air. This is just reference. So you add the 6 beads, but after you put 3 beads on, you can put your hook on here when you get to the 3rd bead. It may fall, over, but you can put it back there later. Okay? Then you put 3 more on, you continue the thread through this bead here, then you can weave it however you want. So let's say we're going like this, you could weave over, then weave down, then weave over, up, and then out. And then to tie this off, you can just go around, or sorry, you're coming out here, you go around through again, and make a little knot. Okay, so you can also use the string that was in the corner here, which I now have moved over here, to make yourself a little loop. Still got these strings to deal with later at the back here, to put your earring hook on. So I might as well just do that now. I usually do this at the end, but just going to do it now. 1, 2, 3, and then I'll put the hook on, and then maybe another 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now the earring hook's just going to go where it wants to go anyways. That's the back. Okay. I don't know if you can see this, but I had my string come out this bead here, and now I'm going to have it go into the other black one on this side. Okay, and it's just going to form a little chain there for me. And then you will have your earring here. And then now you just want to secure this off. Pull it tight, so that's tight. And then I'm probably just going to go through a couple more times. So just be careful about going through the same set of holes too many times, because then it becomes hard to get through. And now I actually have both blacks coming out this corner again, so before I trim these off, I'm going to tie them together again. Then I can finally trim these away. Okay. what this looks like, by the way, when you make the little end for the earring to go on. Once you've got your earring hook on, you can glue these knots now if you want. You can either use clear nail polish or glue, or both. You can do this now or after you've done the bottom tassel portion. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on each knot right now. And then later I am going to put nail polish over the whole thing anyways. But I want to cut these, just the extra string. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing with the tails at the bottom. I'm going to get them out of the way and I will be gluing them later, but I do not want the glue to mess up right here because we are going to be adding tassels and going through those beads. So I do not want the glue in the way at the moment. And now we can start putting our tassels on. Okay, now you're going to get your pattern and you can fill in whatever color combination you would like for making your little tassels on your dress. For example, you could color them in like this and have a little black on the edges. If you want to, you could make it much longer and start with your base here and then add on a bunch if you want to make your tassels even longer. And like for example, here's one which is really long and it's going to be like that, and then this one here is for a shorter earring, and we're going to do this one, except I'm going to keep it simple and just do all red. Now we're going to do the little fringe on the bottom of the dress, and you can refer to your patterns. And I just want to show you basically what we're going to be doing is this portion here represents the bottom portion here of this dress. And so you're going to get about 50 inches of thread if you're doing the smaller pattern, and you will start on the corner and you'll go through the very first bead and come down between first and second, and you'll have your thread coming down this way. Okay, then you will load on, if you're using this design or if you're creating your own, whatever combination you have created. This one is 6 red, so you'll load your 6 red bead, and what will happen is you'll load your 6 on, and then the 6th bead here, the string is going to be coming out the bottom of the 6th bead, but you have to go back up, but you miss the 6th bead, so you come out the bottom, you skip this 6th bead and go back up through the 5th bead, bring your thread through all 5 beads, and then you will thread through here, depending on where this lines up. Actually, if this lines up more right here, then you can bring your thread up through here, which is actually what I'm wanting to happen. But just for the purpose of showing you how this works, is you're going to bring your thread back up through one of these beads, and then the string will come down the next side, and then you will begin your next row of 8. And then you'll string on 8th, and you'll skip the 8th bead, come back up through the 7th bead and up and then over, and you'll just keep repeating that pattern. I forgot to mention that if you're starting off a brand new piece of thread, when you come down here, you should actually wrap through this twice just to secure it there before you come down. So you first wrap twice, so you come through, go around, and then you can come down and add your beads. Okay, I would start with actually about 50 inches of thread if you're doing the shorter pattern. If you're going to do a much longer tassels, you'll need more to start with. Okay, and because this is 11 wide pattern and our dress is actually 13 wide pattern, we are going to start one bead in. So just start at the corner and put your thread through the very first one, like that, just the very first one. And leave yourself a tail here in case you decide you want to add any extra beads, or at the end you may want the extra security of weaving this tail in. So just leave yourself a little tail, and then you can go through this bead again. And then right when you get to that little loop there, you can go through the loop, which will create a knot. Okay? And you have a little bit of a tail here that you can rethread if you need to. Okay, and then you're just going to start. Don't forget, I've got my tails taped behind, the red tails taped behind here for now. You're going to start right here with 6. So you're just going to load the 6 beads on, drop the beads down, and when you get to there, all you do is you push one bead away and you go back up the other 5. Okay, and then you just pull it tight until it's back up at the top again, like that. Then you're going to move over one bead. So now you're going through the second one on the bottom there. Okay, like that. And now you're going to go on to the next row, which says you need 8. So you're going to put 8 on, drop them down, push one bead at the bottom down slightly, and then go back up the other 7 now. Okay. You could try holding the beads up here near the top when you're pulling. You pull them through and then you pull it tight. Okay, so now that's 2 rows done. Now you're just going to move over one more. So the 3rd bead over. And now we're on to the next one, which is 10 beads. So you're going to put 10 beads on. Okay, got your 10 beads on, push that one down, go back up the 9 of them. If you ever string on some beads that you don't like and they look weird, and you've already done a bunch of extra steps so that you can't just simply pull these off, but you want to redo it, you can just get yourself a pair of pliers and you can clip off this row of beads if you want to. And then you don't have to, figure out how to rethread and all that. But I will recommend doing it somewhere like over top a garbage can or outside, and maybe have some glasses on, because these are glass beads and they do, explode when you break them off. So just keep that in mind. All right, now you're just going to keep moving over one. These strings are still there that we have to deal with later, the red ones. So I went through 1, 2, 3. I gotta go through the 4th one now. Okay, we're at the halfway point now. We're at 16 here in the middle. Okay, now that I'm all done here, I can see I still have about maybe 10 inches of thread left, so the 50 inches seem to be a good amount to start with. Now I'm just going to weave these tails through a little bit before I snip them off. And then all we have left is to put the glue on so that we can snip these little red tails off. And then we will have our pair of earrings that we made. Okay, I've weaved these black threads in amongst the rest. So now I'm going to snip those off. And now we just have these last little tails to deal with. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of glue down here. Okay, and when that dries, I'm going to snip off those red strings. This is not 100% dry yet, but I am just going to snip these. And then I'm going to also put a coat of nail polish on the back here while all of this dries. This will also help to seal down any of these loose strings that are up here. A good place to do this is definitely along the edges of the dress. It's just my personal extra security after all this hard work of doing the beads, that if a string should come loose, that this nail polish should hold everything together. So this is the end. This is how they look in the end, 2 little pairs of earrings. This is the front side, and the back side has the coating of the nail polish. So there you go. I hope that you enjoy this and found it useful and are able to make your own pairs of earrings. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to pull these loops down through here. So you start with one, and usually the end one doesn't pull. So go to the next one. And I'm already kind of regretting the thread that I chose. Okay. And then make sure you hold this down because it will try to pull your beads. So pull this, and it's going to pull one of the loops through. Okay, you can see this is where the loop is going right now, but I also don't want it to pull any other ones through. So let's see here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to hold these beads down and until that loop comes through, and now it just made this string longer. Okay, so there's one done. All right, and you just try another thread. They won't all pull through, but you do your best on getting them to pull. Which ones will pull? That one's not going to pull. Try the next one. Okay, that one's going to pull. Fire line is a really good thread to use. Okay, there, I got another one through. Now, based on the pattern so far, is it was one string pulled, one string didn't, but I'm still going to try this next string anyways. Oh, that actually did pull. So there is no real order to this. Okay. Okay, got another one through. Okay, here comes another one. Okay, so I was able to pull them all through except for this one. And we can just, you have a couple options. You could cut the loop there and then tie it a few times. Or depending on how you're planning to finish these earrings, if you are going to put a piece of felt on the back of your earrings, then all you have to do is take this piece of string and put it behind in there when you're gluing it down to the felt, and then it's not that big of a deal. In fact, you could just do that if you have trouble pulling these loops through. You could cut this shorter here, put all the tails behind like that, and then when you glue on a piece of felt behind it, all these little tails will be glued in there. Just depends on what you're wanting. If you're going to make your earrings strictly like this with no felt backing, then you want to try and get rid of these loops. Now for the bottom half, what we have to do is tie all of these so that the beads don't fall off. Again, if you are gluing it onto felt, what you could do is tie this, put some little glue at the end, and glue all these little tails behind onto the felt. If you were just going to be doing it like this, then you may not want to do the pulling of these through, because I noticed that if you look closely on the back, you can still see the strings that were pulled through. Like from the front you can't see it, but from the back you can. And so by putting the felt back here now, that's going to cover up these strings that we pulled through. So an optional way of finishing, once you've removed it from the loom and you had all your long strings, you can cut the strings shorter, and you can tie some of the strings together at the end, and then instead of having to thread these leftover strings back down into your work to hide them, you can back it on a piece of leather or felt and then just glue all these pieces underneath. So that is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to attempt probably what I'll do, and then after this dries, I can cut off the extra felt that's surrounding there. Okay, and so now after it's dried, you can just trim this. And you can either make it into a little pin to wear, or you could hook this on one of the strings and make yourself earrings out of it.